Today we've got the Alpha 850 from Sony, which is their top of the range camera. Now Sony have only been in the DSLR market for about 3 years, but they've done amazing things. Something like a third now of all camera sales are down to Sony. But back to the 850. Now this is a monster of a camera in many different ways. Nearly 25 megapixels of raw processing power this thing has. It's an amazing camera. And the spec list, though probably not the most modern, I mean this camera is now probably about a year old, but it's an impressive camera for those who are very interested in a certain type of photography. In particular, the impressive pixel count. It's a full frame camera, and then on the front of it is this rather lovely bit of glass, actually a Carl Zeiss lens, a very fast 2.8. This is a 28-75 lens, so this camera is really set up for those very keen on their photography, but for a particular type of photography too. Now, who may that be? Now, landscapers, yes. I mean, all those pixels are just going to be fantastic to render all that beautiful colour and detail. But for the studio photographer too, it's not a fast camera by any means, and autofocus is competent and quick, as you'd expect it to be. But it's no barnstormer, it's not going to be set up for sport and things like that. So it really is a camera where you need to think about what you're doing, take your time, set up the camera properly, and actually shoot for the scene in front of you rather than for action. What we're going to do now is actually have a look at, in a bit more detail, about some of the things, the unique points that the camera has that make it perfect for this. Now, as I said earlier, this camera would be absolutely perfect for the landscaper, for the fine art photographer. With all those pixels you can actually use, and a really nice bit of glass. Now, the scene in front of me is this beautiful tree that's fallen down within these golden brown coloured ferns and things. So this for me, with the camera settings that you can actually use, I mean, absolutely wonderful, really bright viewfinder, combined with this fast 2.8 Carl Zeiss lens, really easy for manual focus. And with a camera like this, I prefer to manual focus to actually pick the point that I want to focus on anyway. 3 different metering modes on the 850. You've got your full kind of evaluative or matrix metering system. You've got the partial metering, and then you've got the spot metering for obviously much more accurate metering system. Now, in the back of the camera itself, it does have a menu system that allows you to play with some of the functions and the features. One of the things you can quickly and easily do if you press the function button is actually go into the creative style modes. Standard, vivid, neutral, portrait, landscape, black and white. And within those there are sub-menus which you can fine-tune, contrast, saturation, etc, etc. Now this particular shot I'm going to actually shoot in black and white, and there's various different sub-modes that you can change there. This is absolutely perfect for it. Really nice, clean image, lets you see what you want. Bang. That's lovely. Another important function to talk about with this camera, and with many Sonys in actual fact, is they have a built-in steady shot. Now what this enables you to do is actually shoot in conditions where, certainly in low light, and if you need to use sort of a smaller aperture than usual, it just allows you to shoot and still get steady shots. Now what that means is you can use practically every single lens in the Sony lineup, which are growing anyway. Of course on a tripod you don't need to use it, but it's as simple applying it as switch on, switch off. So you can use all the pixels. It's got some excellent menu functions on the back, so you can fine-tune your styles. Of course it will shoot in RAW and JPEG, and there are various different permutations of RAW and JPEG as well. Small, you can have C-RAW, which are the smaller RAWs. Don't fully understand those myself, but don't know why you not crop or resize actually in Photoshop itself. Just one of those things. Now just a little bit about some of the ergonomics of the camera itself. People actually say about Sony, they're a bit clunky, they're a bit sort of mechanical, and they're a bit agricultural in their look. Well, okay, to a certain extent, yes. They're not as sexy as a Nikon or particularly the Canon range that I like myself. But I quite like this 850. It has a solid feel to it. It is really built properly. It's built to last and for the pro to use, with various different weather sealings and all that sort of stuff, as you would expect. On the top here, you can actually customize. You've got 3 different customizations. So, for example, if you're shooting black and white, or you want to shoot in very bright, colourful modes, or you want something that's perhaps shooting wildlife, and you want something that's really accurate, you can actually program in these modes into the camera itself. So you've got presets, so you know, right, okay, I'm doing wildlife. It just saves time in setting up and allows you, when you get on scene, bang, right, I'm right into that mode. So a clever little idea. Of course, one of the things that most cameras wouldn't be without these days are things like the high dynamic range or the D-range optimizer, the electronic aids that help you manage the contrast. And of course this has it. It's a big sensor, so it can cope with all of that contrast very, very well. Full frame 35mm, of course, just to remind you. But you can D-range optimizer. Now, what does that actually mean, D-range? Now, the concept is quite simply, the computer, the processor, talks to the picture, kind of processes the picture and says, right, hang on a minute, this is a bit too bright, I need to just knock those values down a little bit. So very, very clever little function. And of course there's lots of different ways to actually customize that. Now, what I'm going to do next is talk about this lens, but we'll go and find a really nice picture to actually get the most out of this lens. Now, there's no point in putting a cheap bit of glass on a 25 megapixel full frame camera. There's just no point. You'll see all the nasty aberrations and the problems with the lens. So what Sony have done is they've created a 28 to 75mm lens, which is a Carl Zeiss optic. Now, that's really a guarantee of optical perfection, in my mind anyway. It's a fast lens as well. It's 2.8 all the way through from the 28 to the 75. But what does that mean in real life? Yes, it's great for a nice clear viewfinder image, which helps manual focusing and auto-focusing, of course, as well. But it allows you your creative options. 2.8 gives you these beautiful soft autofocus details called bokeh. You've probably heard the term before and wondered, what the heck does that mean? Well, that's what it is. Now, I've got this picture of this fungus here. Focus on the front fungus, bang, self-timer. And that's a lovely shot with those autofocus soft details, those bokeh. That's what this lens is all about, and what this camera is all about. Actually getting more creativity, more interest, more passion into your pictures, and actually getting the results that you're happy with. Now, I spent a day with the 850, and in actual fact this is my own one. I really do like this camera. It's got so much to offer. Yes, it's expensive, £2,000 for the body, and the lens is not cheap either. But you know, if you look at something like the D3X from Nikon, you're looking at nearly £5,000 just for the body on its own. Now, the Sony does have its faults, of course. It's not the most sophisticated looking of cameras, and when you start dialing in higher ISOs, noise does start to creep in. But really, you're probably not going to use the camera in anything other than the lower ISOs anyway. It's for landscapers, for fine art. And if you're talking about fine art black and white, the noise isn't going to be an issue anyway, because it might add to the picture. So overall, it's an impressive camera. It seems good value for money. Okay, we're looking at close to £3,000 with this. I mean, what is a beautiful lens? But I think in terms of value for money, I don't think you can beat it. If you want all those megapixels, if you want massive, great prints, if you want fine colour, if you want a camera that's actually going to slow you down a bit and make you think, I think the Sony is very difficult to beat. Arguably, that's just my opinion, of course. But for the money, for the quality that you can get, I think the Sony is, for me, something like an 8.5 out of 10.